I'm Reverend Tim, and our purpose for being here is to help each of us and the community as a whole to live from our divine center within. Our vision is to create a world that truly works for everyone. And that's why we're here. And we've got a great schedule today.
Good morning. Good morning. I thought we'd start today with a quote from Ernest Holmes. Disregarding all evidence to the contrary, the student of truth will maintain that he lives in a perfect world, among people potentially perfect. He will regulate his thinking to meet this necessity and refuse to believe in its opposite. At first, he may be influenced by conditions, and he may appear weak, but as time goes on, he will prove to himself that his position is a correct one, for that which appears imperfect will begin to slip from his experience. Don't we all want that? We already live in a perfect universe, but it needs to be seen mentally before it can become a part of our experience. I invite you now to be still and receptive. I know for us the awareness of the presence of God, all-powerful, all-knowing, everywhere present, and in those here now. I recognize the expression of Source in and through all here, in its fullness, its peace, its power, and its love. I give thanks, gratefulness in advance for the wonderful words, for the music and the sharings to be given and received during this service.
God is, I am right here, right now.
Meditation. Can we sit down, quiet ourselves, and go within? Love is the sole impulse for creation, and man who does not have it as the greatest incentive in his life has never developed the real creative instinct. No one can swing out into the universe without love, for the whole universe is based upon it. Blessings to us all.
And when the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Shine until tomorrow, let it be.
My name is Peggy Shin. I am a religious science practitioner with the Ahihik group here at the Center for Spiritual Living in Lake Chapala.
Yes.
And I spend part of my time here and part of my time still in the United States, so you see me coming and going if you come and go. And you wonder, well, what happened to her? Where did she go? I'll be back. So the topic for today is loving what is. I have been up against this quite a bit recently, not only for myself, but also kind of in observation of other folks around me. It seems like the last couple of years have certainly been an opportunity to practice this concept of loving what is and finding the gift in everything. And I'm going to have to put my glasses down because we didn't quite get my notes printed out where I could see them well enough. I guess I'm half deaf and about half blind both at the same time in my old age. I have a cataract in each eye that needs surgery, and I may not hear as well as I once did before either. But there are a couple of different things that I was looking into in the last week or so since Tim had asked me to give him the topic as early as like last week. And I needed to put something out there, and I said, loving what is what's been on my mind. Some of you may have read the book called Loving What Is by Byron Katie, back from years back. If you haven't heard of Byron Katie, she's got quite a story in and of herself, and has for many, many years been on the New Thought movement scene, allowing us to take advantage of some of the benefits of her wisdom and her knowledge. Someone else that I was looking at was Brené Brown. We've had the privilege here of studying one of her books called Daring Greatly in years past. And so I thought, well, people in this audience might have some frame of reference from Brené Brown. And also a woman who's produced a couple of books in the last 3 or 4 years, starting at the age of 90. Wow. Her name is Edith Eger. She is a survivor of the Holocaust and was called the ballerina of Auschwitz. Wow. She's written 2 books now, one called The Choice and the other one called The Gift, and Finding the Gift in Everything. So I wanted just to kind of set the mood with reading you a few things from these people and what they have to say, and why I'm going to launch into the idea of self-inquiry. So Brené Brown, in her book, Braving the Wilderness, she's written, I think, about 5 books by now, in addition, to the one that we read, which I think was one of her first ones. She says that curiosity is our greatest superpower, and it replaces the armor that we've carried around our whole lives when we decide to finally break out of that armor. And we've been removing it bit by bit, maybe, but we're getting the chinks out and taking that armor off. She said curiosity is the superpower to replace that armor that we thought we were relying on that really wasn't doing us much good anyway. That the vulnerability that she talks about in Daring Greatly is where we want to move to. And Edith Eger, in her book The Choice, she says that we must find the gift in everything. And certainly coming from where her background came from, we could imagine the tall order that must have been. She invites us to focus on what is still here, and not what has been lost, or has died, or was stolen, or is missing. And she asks that we are using our other superpower of paying attention to our lives and to that of others as we look for that gift of what is in the present moment that might have felt like it wasn't so much of a gift. And not to be focusing on the what is absent, but what is present. So I'm inviting you to think about these things as we talk about this today. So we pay attention, she said, Edith says, if we pay attention to our thinking and our feeling and our behaviors, that's where the gift will be found, in that paying of attention. And her perspective is that love is what we want to be thinking and feeling and behaving around, but it really doesn't show up until we're in the doing part. We can think about love, we can feel love, we can be the love, but until we're actually acting from that being the love, it hasn't really totally shown up for others to be able to pay attention to it. So she suggests that we include in that idea of being the love in our daily lives and the interactions, and the dukkha, the Hindu word for shit, shows up in our world, that we have the opportunity then to be looking for the gift that I think you probably have all heard the story about the little girl that wanted the pony, and she couldn't, wasn't getting the pony that she was asking for. And one time she saw this big pile of dung out in the field and went and started digging around, and her parents said, get out of there, She said, what are you doing? She said, well, I'm looking for the pony. It's at the bottom of the pile. Yeah. So that's the thing for me to remember. I mean, I've always held on to that story, and I tell it over and over and over again. But what Edith says is, while you're being the love, remind yourself not to pick up the other end of the rope that someone threw out for you to play the tug of war in the conflict with. So stay out of opportunities to jump into the conflict while you're paying attention to being the love. So we want to talk today about self-inquiry. within the context of these things that I was just talking to you about. I don't think I could see my notes even with my glasses, much less hold this. So you're going to get whatever I remember that I was going to whatever God wants me to say, that's what you're going to hear. So first I'd like to start out with some questions of you all in regard to the inquiry of self-inquire. I want to inquire, and these are rhetorical questions, so you don't have to respond in any fashion or even show on your face that you agree or don't agree or anything. I just want to invite you to consider if you believe these things. That'll set another context for the frame of reference for us. And I will use the word God to refer to what some of you may call, the universe, Buddha, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, whatever, Mother, Father, Great Spirit. Any of these terms will be just fine. Just fill in the blank in your own head. But I would be using the word God. So, do you believe that God, Spirit, universe, and so forth is bigger than any problem you think you have? Do you believe that God is everywhere and in all, and might also be in the problem? Now this is part of what Daisy read to us about the omniscient, omnipresent, all-knowing Spirit that is God. So then, do you believe that there is or that there might be the possibility of divine order in everything? That there is an energy that animates us and the rest of the universe, and within that context of that platform, there is some divine order, whether we get it, understand it, see it, observe it, are aware of it or not. But it just might be out there, if you don't already have a real solid belief in divine order. And do you believe that we cannot change the facts of what has happened to us in our lives? What happened yesterday, what happened 5 minutes ago, that's the past. We cannot change that at all because it's done. It's already done. But that it hurts more and longer when we continue to argue with what has happened. What has happened is the what is that we're looking to move ourselves in the direction of practicing the presence of learning how to accept and love what is. Do you believe that suffering is in the believing of a thought that comes with resisting and arguing with what happened? With what is, with what we didn't like, with what wasn't our preference, it wasn't our opinion. I didn't want it to be that way. These are all the things that we are saying are running through our minds of it. He should have, she should have, they should have, God should have, any of these things that we're saying should or shouldn't have around, we're referring to the past. It's already happened, and that's how we can sit in judgment around it. Do you believe that we can change our interpretation of what it is that happened, of what that past was? We can't change the facts of it, but we might be able to change our interpretation of it. See it, as they say in the Course of Miracles, see it differently, with different eyes. Do you believe that how we talk to ourselves, not just how we talk with others, but how we talk within ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, what we're listening to ourselves say to ourselves, that self-talk, actually can change the chemistry in our bodies? Do you believe that what we focus on expands? That our energy flows where our attention goes? If I'm watching the puppy dog being petted by Fotini, that's where my attention is, and that's where the focus of my energy is in this instant. And so that wherever our energy is flowing, it's following our attention, that power, that superpower that Edith says is our attention. And do you believe that there is nothing that we deem bad that at some point good will come or could come or might eventually come? And do you believe that our past is our so what? And that with our present, we can choose the now what. No matter what your answer might have been in your internal thinking there to what I was asking you, and no matter whether you agree or disagree, don't give a flip. You know, you're here in the chair today, hoping to have something that resonates with you, and I'm hoping that we will deliver that. So while you're here, I want to talk to us about the letting be from the song that Tim played, that I didn't realize was even in the roster there, and the letting go. We talk a lot in our movement about letting go. I release and I let go. Many of you probably heard that song by Ricky Byers-Beckwith. And it's like, oh, sure, yeah, release and let go. Oh, yeah, well, how? Where? When? How am I going to get there? And I submit to you that, we have the benefit of laws that work, whether they're spiritual laws or physical laws. Now, we can have a physical law that says, I let go, and there goes the piece of paper. The law of gravity helped with that one. Sometimes we don't follow the laws that are spiritually available to us. And for me, I don't speak for myself, and those of you that it fits for, that's great, and if not, that's okay too. But I even defy the law of gravity, I won't let go of something. If I got a hold of it, I have to release it. I've got to move those fingers. I've got to do something for that law of gravity to take the piece of paper away from me to let it go. And I'll find myself just like, oh, can I move my finger away? Can I let go of it? Am I willing to let go of it? So a lot of times my prayer isn't just about letting go. It's about being open, honest, willing to let go, and being willing to be willing to be willing to be willing. Because I've got to go through a lot of that dukkha sometimes where I'm just resistant. I'm resistant to loving what is. I'm resistant to finding the gift because I'm not happy and I don't want it to be different and I want to just sit with it. So if you sit in it, that's one thing. If you sit on it, that's repressing it, keeping it from being expressed. The source of depression is the lack of expression. So we want to express, but we don't want it to stay in our bodies. That body chemistry, that our thought process is changing, that I was asking you, do you believe that? Well, science produces the proof that that is true, whether we choose to believe it or not. That is the body-mind connection that we talk about in the New Thought Movement and Centers for Spiritual Living, that those things are part of what we have to acknowledge, that science is proving up what we've always said we believed. Well, now there's no chance but to say, okay, am I going to do it or not do it? Am I going to accept that or not accept that? So your understanding is different, I think, if you answered yes to most of the questions that I put to you. But I would say that if you have answered yes to most of them, that you're well set up for this process that we're going to talk more about today, and it'll be easier because you already understand something of the concept of let go and let God. You already understand that there's only 3 types of business out there in the universe. There's God's business, and your business, and my business. And that when you are essentially mentally living my life with, well, you should have, well, Peggy could have done this, well, she should have said that, and that should have been this way, or I didn't like the way that happened. That's all that stuff in the past, that I'm living that other part of my life in the past, or somebody else's life that I'm judging should have been different. So I'm not able to be in my own space, in my own life. Or if you're fearing the future of what's going to happen with the weather, the pandemic, the government, the immigration laws, that some people have been talking about with me lately, all of that is really kind of God's business. Because the future is up to God. I can have my part in it, and I can co-create with Spirit, but it's not about me controlling the outcome. And you also know that rehashing the past or rehearsing the future is just kind of a waste of time. So when I'm not in my lane, if I'm in yours or if I'm in God's lane and I'm in your business, I have kind of abdicated paying attention to my own business, to my own life, and what's showing up and what's happening, because my attention is over there, or out there, or down there in the future somewhere. And I am not in the now. I'm not present to be aware of what is, much less what the gift is in it. And you probably know and understand and probably have heard the teaching, the Buddhist teaching of the parable of the two monks that were going to cross the stream. And there was a woman there waiting to cross the stream at the same time who would kind of stick her toes in the water and then step back because she was afraid to cross the river, the ford on foot through the water and the rushing of the water and the rocks. And she asked the monks, one of them was a junior monk and the other one was a senior monk, if one of them could carry her across the water, would help her. And the two monks look at each other like, well, we're not supposed to touch women. We took a vow. But she wanted the help, and she needed the help from that standpoint. And they were going to cross the river anyway. They were going to walk across the stream anyway. So the senior monk picks her up, puts her on his shoulders, and carries her across to the other side. And the junior monk is standing there just like astounded. He can't believe it. Then he walks across and joins up with the senior monk, and they walk away, and the woman walks her direction, and the monks are headed back to their monastery. And an hour passes, and the junior monk is just fuming and angry and upset and questioning his own belief system and what are they doing here, that he just did this thing that's prohibited by their religion. And an hour passes, and 2 hours pass, and 3 hours pass, and finally they get to the monastery, and he is like so stuck in that anger and upset about what happened. So he turns to the senior monk and he says, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to report this to the master. You did something that's against our rules, and I have to let them know that you did that. And the other senior monk kind of backs away and laughs and says, you know, I think it's been about 3 hours since I carried that woman across the water. You're still carrying her. And that's what he's been paying his attention to the last 3 hours, and not talking and just fuming in his own mind. We've now heard that story again and refreshed our memories about the benefit of the teaching of that parable from Buddhism, that where we're keeping our attention, we're stuck. And if we're in judgment and upset, that's all that's filling our hearts and our brains and running that current through our body chemistry that might produce some untoward health issue in the future if we do it all the time. So I wanted to share with you today this tool that comes from Byron Katie that I want you to know about, and if it's something you don't know about or you want to learn more about it, I have some copies of just what I wrote, but there's also some other information that I could send you via email if you want to give me your email address at some point during the potluck and what have you. So Byron Katie's process for loving what is a questioning process of self-inquiry. That when we're talking to ourselves and we're the shoulda, coulda, hadda, oughta, wanna, running that drill through our brains, that we could instead think about where we would prefer to be. That these things that we talked about in the beginning where I said, do you believe that we can change our interpretation? Do you believe that we can change our thinking to change our lives? If you're not open to that idea even, you probably, I'm glad you're here for the food, but you might not be in the right room. But if we can concur, that we are in accord about these things, then maybe some of this of what Byron Katie has to offer can be of assistance. So she's inviting us to take a position right now before I start to read you some of what she said, where you locate in your mental picture in your mind someone or something that represents for you, that symbolizes for you the cause or the source of whatever you're hurting from, whatever you're upset about, whatever's causing your attention to be like away from the good, the beautiful, and the true. And you actually might feel that this is a cross that you're bearing. We're getting close to, this is Palm Sunday. This is the day of Hosanna, the day of unlimited and infinite possibilities that what could happen. We know later how the story ended, sort of, kind of, the following week. But this may be a cross you feel that you've been bearing. This is your crucifixion. And whoever it is that you're blaming as the responsible party, where they should have, could have, had, or done something differently, we pull that image of that person or that situation into our minds while we go through these questions and allow ourselves to let them sink in a little bit. But then I have a copy of it for you that you can pick up later, and then you can give me your email address if you want a more thorough description of the instructions and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing you're doing is you're looking at, okay, what angers, confuses, saddens, or disappoints me, and why? And what is it about them that I don't like? And then the answer is, I am, fill in the blank. The second question, she has 4 questions in her inquiry, and I've actually got 6 on this piece of paper because I added a couple. The second one is, well, how do you want that to change? How do you want them to change? How do you want it to be instead? What do you want from them? Or what do you want them to do? And you answer that question with I want, and fill in the blank. Question number 3 is, what is it that they should or shouldn't do, be, think, or feel? You know, a lot of times we're taking people's feelings away from them, believing they are not permitted to feel the way they're feeling. What advice would you offer instead, that they do instead? And so you answer that question with they should or shouldn't, and fill in your blank and write it all out. You know, get it all out, express it all. What do they need to do in order for you to be happy with the situation or the person? And you answer that question with they need to, and you fill in the blank from there. The 5th question that I'm adding is, what do you think of them? Make a list. Remember, be very petty and judgmental. Like really dig it down and get into it, right? Get it all out. And then, what is it that you don't want to experience with this person ever again? I don't ever want to, and you fill in the blank. After you go through that part of the exercise, however long it takes for you to dump everything on paper or into the recorder or into your cell phone or wherever it works for you, you know, and you dump it all out. Then she has a turnaround that she suggests that you work through by going back through the answers that you've put to those questions and turning them into their opposite. For instance, if I said, my sister never listens to me, and I'm ranting, you know, these are rants, right? You know, and I'm ranting about that, then I would change it to the opposite of my sister does listen to me. Or I might change it into the opposite of I don't listen to my sister. See how this kind of can be woven together into reversing the role, kind of. Then you ask yourself, is it true? Can you absolutely know that it is true? And this is for either set of answers, yours of the opposite or yours of the original. How do you react? What happens when you believe the thoughts that you had as you were reacting? Who would you be without having those thoughts? And then would that person that you would be without those thoughts, would that be good for you? Are you happy with that? Would that help you? Are those things that changing it around might shift your world? Might actually tilt your world tectonically if you went through this really seriously, in earnest, and with an open heart and an open mind? I think that can be the result. So you're turning each of the statements around. So that's the tool that I wanted to share with you that I thought might be of use. It certainly helps me just to ask the 4 questions. Whenever something's going on in the street or in a conversation with someone, you know, even my own self-talk, I can ask myself, well, is that true? Is it really true? I mean, do I want it to be true, or do I want something different? Because what we know really is that we're mostly just telling our story. And we can change our story. Just like we can change the interpretation of things. So the goal here is to see yourself in your own mind with this person or situation that is your cross, is your crucifixion, is your, you know, that dirty, rotten, you know, whatever. And can you get to the place where you have a gratitude for the gift that you find in the whole process you went through? And could you actually, in the context of what we're talking about in the next week of the, you know, Christian tradition, could you be like Jesus? Could you wash their feet? Could you let that in and let that go? Many of us have been victims. At one level or another, all of us has been a victim. That we could choose to see ourselves as victims. I mean, even if it started in the crib and they didn't come to feed you on time. Yeah, you're crying, right? It begins, I think, at a hardwired stage very early on. But just because we've been victimized doesn't mean we have to choose the identity of victim. And as I said, we're able to change that story. Because if we identify with it as our story, we can change our identification with the story. Brené Brown says that if you own your story, if you're willing to own your part in your story even, that you can rewrite the story and you can also write the ending of your story. So that if you won't do that, your story owns you. And how many of us have known people in our lives who were, you know, like Carolyn May said, so stuck in the woundology of coming out of that victimhood. That's the only set of glasses they could see through. And that never was going to be probably changing for them. We don't want to choose that for ourselves. So once you own the story, once you have the questions, and you recognize that what you're doing always is overcoming to become, to change who you are, the level of spiritual awareness and consciousness. And as we move into this Holy Week that I mentioned a minute ago, from today at Palm Sunday as the Infinite Possibility Day, into next week where we have that crucifixion, find your resurrection. Find your resurrection in the gift. Drop your cross. Let go, let God. And as Marianne Williamson says, join the collective resonance of consciousness for resurrection rather than the collective consciousness of crucifixion. So I invite you to accept the gifts that you find. They may not be wrapped up as pretty as you'd like. They may not be as big or as valuable as you'd like, but everything is a gift. And when we can choose it that way, because everything is God. God is our greatest gift, right? That is the power and the presence of the Spirit within us, around, through, and for us. And as we recognize that there is that power within us, that is not of us, maybe in some ways is directed by us in co-creation with Spirit, but operates through us to change our lives, and through our lives changing to help with the transformation of others' lives and the situations that we are finding ourselves in where we can't accept or love what is. And I just invite you to consider about this idea of attention, something that I believe, that I learned from another teacher a long time ago. That when we combine our intention with our attention, and that's the focus of it all, expanding, there is no tension. And I don't know about you, but I'm happy to get rid of tension in my life, especially this last couple of years. And I invite you to decide your choice for the answer of the next question and the final question that I want to put to you today. What do you choose for your legacy? Handing down the pain or passing on the gift? Thank you.
Now is a time when we pick up an offering. It's a time to get in touch with our gratitude, what we're grateful for, and contribute as you see appropriate for you. Steve is going to do the treatment around that, and once the basket's passed, we'll play a little song and go with it.
So this is the time for giving and receiving. I'm going to talk a little bit about receiving. It seems like receiving is all about what we believe in consciousness about our wholeness, about how much we deserve. And part of that is we realize that the universe is always completely for us. This is Palm Sunday. The universe would love to spread palms in front of every step we take and yell and scream with the hosts of heaven how magnificent we are. And as an elementary school teacher, I had a great deal of trouble with my prosperity. Believe the stuff out there about, you're serving society, you're serving the children, but you don't really deserve a whole lot to get paid. And finally, after years and years and years of working on my stuff, and constant asking people to pray for me for my prosperity, finally, after about 25 years, I was in meditation, and suddenly I got this concept. I was making after about 25 years of elementary teaching, I was making about $36,000 a year. And suddenly I got this voice that became my mantra that said, I now allow money, capital M, to love me. But money is an aspect of God, another name for God. And that year I grossed $100,000. I don't know how. And my gratitude went up with that. And so the way that we increase our prosperity is through gratitude. So I invite you to close your eyes. And with great gratitude, the more emotion and energy we put into our gratitude, the more we expand our life and the more we expand our ability to receive. For the universe is knocking at the doors and windows of our being, saying, let me give to you, let me give to you. Tell me what you want. I'm here for you. I'm in your corner, whatever you want. And so we put our attention on everything we have with gratitude. Our friend, the place we live, this magnificent paradise that we live in, this center, our friends, our loved ones, whatever it is, we give great thanks. We with joy, with thanksgiving for everything we have, and the universe then goes, oh my beloved, that gratitude tells me you want more. I'm waiting to give you more. And so with great gratitude, we give thanks. And so I invite you to take out your gift and hold it over your heart. And bless it. With that great gratitude, we bless every hand that money has gone through. All the blessings it has given us as it's come into our life, we bless it and we send it on. Knowing that every hand it passes through gets blessed and multiplied. And we know with that gratitude for this money that we pass on, we expect it to return to us tenfold, 100-fold. But the universe is always constantly saying, let me give to you. Tell me what you want. So it is.
So there are a few announcements. Something that we do every August, the first week of August. It's called, on my email, COA, Conference of the Americas. So I want Peggy and Reverend Rebecca to talk about that, because that's starting to become close.
This is our 9th year on a row. that we officially started this, and it started as a retreat for practitioners, and then it grew up to be a world conference.
So this year we're having a live event, August 2nd through the morning of the 6th. So the people who don't live here, who would want to stay in the hotel, they're going to be in the hotel the nights of the 2nd through the 5th. So you'll see our advertising, this is 2nd through the 5th. We start on Tuesday afternoon and we end on Saturday morning, the 6th of August, at the Monte Carlo Hotel in Chapala. Our headliners so far for this year are Edward Viljoen, who is the present spiritual leader on the international level for Centers for Spiritual Living, and David Bruner, who's been a real hit for us always in the past, will be here. He's retiring from his pulpit in San Jose this year, so any of you who are familiar with him, you might want to come and have one of the latter opportunities you might have for seeing him in person at the stage presenting. Jeffrey Ryan from Riverside, California will be here. A woman named Kathleen Sibley from our home office is coming down to handle the panels for our exams for the 3 graduates we will have this year from the ministerial school, where they've taken all of their classes in Spanish.
We welcome our newest practitioner, who's going to give our closing.
The benediction, that treatment. Thank you, everybody. I know that I'm new here, but I'm just so filled with excitement. And I've met so many people just in the last few weeks, and I feel like I'm really right at home. And as you said, well, Reverend Tim, I think I'm being encouraged to stay, or seduced is the word that he used. So that's easy, that sounds good. So why don't we just kind of shift gears here a minute? Why don't we just kind of sit up a little bit straighter, put both feet on the floor, and just, well, we're not eating, and I usually say stop what you're doing, swallow what you're chewing. But anyway, so let's just become present to this moment. Just taking a deep breath and allow the breath to shift us. As you fall into that deep breath, just drop into that center. Drop into the center of your being. And when you drop in there, that is where you find the divine Holy Spirit that is always there, that always resides there. Just become aware of that essence of the divine, which is all around. It is in the air. It is in every breath that we breathe. It is in every heartbeat. It is in the pause of our heart. So just breathing and coming from that place of being surrounded and held by the divine. Receive this prayer, this benediction from that place of the divine. Knowing that there is only one. And that one has so many names. Mother, Father, God, Allah, Buddha. Today, I call it love. It is divine, magnificent love, known by many names, but just one in essence. And we are experiencing that essence right now, knowing that love is the greatest power of all. Love has the ability to heal, to lift, to transform. As you do that inquiry, bring love into that inquiry, and know that yes, I, Bonnie, am made from that love, and that is my truth, and I know that it is the truth of each and every person here, that you are an outpouring, an outpicturing of that divine, magnificent love. Allowing that love to hold in gratitude for this service that we have had today, thanking the divine for orchestrating such a beautiful, warm and loving environment. Thanking Peggy for sharing her questions for self-inquiry. Thanking Reverend Tim and his beautiful wife for not only opening their homes, but opening their hearts to embrace each and every one of us. Because in the words of Maya Angelou, we are more alike than unalike. We are all one. Many in body, but one in mind, connected to the divine mind. And it is with a jubilant and a grateful heart that I am just so honored to know the truth of our gathering And I just release my word into law that always says yes, yes, yes. And I anchor this prayer with, and so it is.
So it is. So if you wish, stand and form a circle. Yes.
Indeed.